This guy's a lonely rich kid living all alone in a mansion until a mysterious maid shows up out of nowhere. She's perfect at everything, acts all seductive for no reason, and keeps teasing him like she's hiding something. Now he's losing sleep trying to figure out if she's an assassin, a witch, or just too hot for his sanity. In this story, a boy named Yuri spies on a maid he hired recently. He realizes she's hardworking and proper, but he's so curious about her that he can't focus on his own things. She notices him watching her, so Yuri hides. He finds it odd that such a fancy maid would come to work at such a tiny old mansion. The other day, he saw her in the study muttering curses or something as she read a suspicious book. Suddenly, she approaches him and asks him if she can help him, which shocks him. He stares into her alluring purple eyes and considers it more suspicious. The maid's name is Lilith. She asks him if he's curious about her, so Yuri surprisingly asks her how she can tell. He accuses her of the ability to read his mind and mentions that he doesn't know if it's because he's never seen a pretty maid before, but he's so curious that he can't even sleep at night. This shocks Lilith, but she has no choice but to agree that she knew that when he accuses her. She suggests preparing him an herb tea so he can sleep better, and Yuri agrees but still finds her suspicious. Later that day, Yuri wonders who this maid is. Suddenly, she enters his study with the herb tea, so Yuri thanks her and pretends to be reading. While she pours the tea, he thinks about how suspicious she is and how she doesn't talk much. He wonders why he had to hire such a suspicious maid and remembers what happened. In a flashback, his parents passed away and the previous people working in the mansion had to leave. They wished him well and their parting was a pleasant one. After he lost his parents in a car accident, he decided to take over the mansion. The inheritance he got wasn't much, so he had to dismiss all of his servants. Even though his relatives didn't like the idea, he decided to live alone in the mansion. The day after that, he wakes up excited to get his life together. He decides to learn to do everything himself and quickly becomes a grown-up. At first, he tries to make breakfast and ends up burning it. It turns out to be lousy, but he has no choice but to eat his creation. After that, he does some laundry, but puts in a year worth of soap. It seems like a piece of cake to him until the washing machine fills up the room with soap suds. Next up, he tries vacuuming, and that goes on well until he mistakenly sucks in all his documents. That evening, he ends up quite spent and realizes life without servants is hard. He quickly becomes hungry again and ends up eating some canned noodles. It's at this point he hears someone at the door and goes to check. When he checks, it turns out to be Lilith and he finds her suspicious. He demands to know who she is, but she simply apologizes for coming so late. She mentions that he doesn't seem to have any servants and asks if he's alone. Regardless, Yuri asks what she wants, so she asks him if he would be kind enough to hire her to work in the mansion. This shocks Yuri, especially because it's happening late at night, so he tells her he's not wealthy and he has dismissed all his other servants. Lilith responds that she doesn't need to be paid and can serve as a live-in maid. She asks him if it's not inconvenient living alone and suggests that she'll help with all the chores. Yuri tries to turn her down, but when he turns around to see her beautiful eyes, he gets mesmerized and feels like he's seen her eyes somewhere. Eventually, his stomach churns out of hunger, so he agrees but threatens to throw her out if she turns out to be useless. In the present, he wonders if he should have said no, but he realizes every meal she makes is delicious. Every place she cleans sparkles and his clothes smell so nice when she washes them. Yuri feels like he's under a spell, so he accuses Lilith of being a sorcerer. She's confused, so he explains that everything she does is almost too perfect and adds that her suspicious eyes make it clear she's not human. Amused, Lilith agrees that she's a sorcerer and says she used her eyes to cast a bewitching spell on him and he fell for it. He's shocked, but she soon tells him she was kidding. Yuri, however, can't take a joke and he insists that he was right. He tells her he caught her reading a magic book in the study and points out that everything she cleans has a glow. Everything she washes has a pleasant scent and her eyes sparkle like gems. He believes that her eyes were meant to bewitch him with terrifying magic, but his words just make Lilith blush. Eventually, she tells him she has to go shopping and hurries away. When she steps out, she realizes Yuri can't take a joke and recalls that the book he caught her reading was about housekeeping. Later that day, Lilith dries some clothes and Yuri comes to spy on her again because he lost his chance to confront her earlier. He wonders what her goal would be here if she's a sorcerer and why she'd come to a poor mansion like this. When she notices him watching her, she asks him if he's done with his homework. However, Yuri decides to confront her to know what she's plotting. She mistakes his question because she was talking about lunch earlier and tells him what she plans to cook. When Yuri hears it, he becomes excited about what she's going to cook for lunch but soon remembers that's not what he came here for. He confronts her about her plans for the mansion, but Lilith just grins. This annoys Yuri, so he asks her why she's grinning. Lilith explains that he's so adorable when he watches her and she couldn't contain her smile. However, Yuri tells her that's BS because he doesn't smile like that even if he thinks she's cute. He explains that her beauty makes his chest tense and he can't focus on anything. He also mentions that her smile and expressions make him tense too, and Lilith becomes red out of embarrassment. When he demands to know why she decided to become his maid, Lilith tells him she can't tell him yet. Shocked, Yuri becomes more afraid that she's truly scheming something. Sometime later, Yuri cowers in a corner while Lilith approaches him dressed as a witch. He screams out of fear and falls out of his bed before he realizes it was a dream. He thinks about how Lilith has been showing up in his dream every night but later decides to go have some water. While walking through the hall, he notices a door open and worries there might be a burglar in the house. He wonders if he should wake Lilith, but eventually decides to face the burglar since he's the master of the house. The ball's on this kid. When he opens the door, it turns out to be Lilith, who's mixing something in a pot while reading through a book. He finds it suspicious but decides to leave her be. The next morning, Yuri wakes up to a huge breakfast. After Lilith greets him, he thanks her for the food and realizes it all tastes so great. When he sees one of the fruit mixtures, he remembers it from the dream he had, so he asks her if she put something suspicious in the food. He tells her he saw her doing something suspicious in the kitchen the night before and asks her what it was. Eventually, Lilith plays along and tells him that she put a love potion in his food and she's impressed that he caught on. Yuri is shocked that she can put a love potion in her master's food and realizes that it's probably the love potion that's making her food taste so good. He mentions that this must be why he can't stop staring at her, why his heart races when they meet, and why he thinks she's really cute. His words make Lilith embarrassed, but Yuri accuses her of drugging him with a love potion. She agrees that it's all due to the love potion because she was embarrassed to tell him she was studying how to cook so she could make good meals for him. Eventually, Yuri tells her to stop putting love potion in his food, and she agrees. Later that day, Yuri thinks about Lilith and wonders what she's really after. He finds her cleaning the window, and then he realizes he doesn't know much about her. At this point, he doesn't even know her name, so he approaches. When she calls him by his name for the first time, he finds that suspicious. He asks her why she suddenly addressed him by his name and asks her what she's scheming. Amused, Lilith explains that it's normal for a maid to address a master by his name. She comes close to him and teasingly asks him if he's embarrassed. However, Yuri mentions that his parents called each other by name and they were madly in love, which shocks Lilith. She explains that she didn't mean it that intensely and quickly rushes off to go shopping again. Yuri is suspicious that she was so rattled and then wonders if she has all his private information. He wonders if she's going to put his private information on the internet or sell it to some private organization. He finds it odd that he doesn't know anything about her, so he decides to look her up to prove he knows more about her than she knows about him. He enters the library to find a book, and then he finds a dossier about her where he learns her name is Lilith. He finds her name suspicious, but he's glad he knows something about her. That evening, he waits for her to call him by his name so he can call her by her name to show he knows something about her. However, Lilith simply lists what they're going to have for dinner and refers to him as a young master. Confused, he asks her if she won't refer to him by his name, so she asks him if he wants her to call him by his name. He reluctantly agrees, and for some reason she seductively tells him that calling him by his name would make them become closer. Yuri interjects that calling each other by name wouldn't make people closer, which surprises Lilith. Yuri explains that his parents were madly in love because they understood each other well, but he doesn't know anything about her. Lilith becomes worried when she realizes he's right, so Yuri tells her to tell him more about herself. This makes her blush, and she excitedly agrees. Eventually, Yuri tells her he doesn't trust her yet. He explains his plan to grow up as soon as he can to expose her for who she is, so Lilith agrees. That night, Lilith looks at a picture of Yuri and remembers her conversation with Yuri. In a flashback, he asks her why she suddenly decided to call him by his name, so she told him there was no specific reason. In another flashback, she saw this picture of him and packed her bags to come see him. After going through the train, she runs to the mansion and eventually lets herself in. Sometime later, Lilith cleans the house and prepares food. She soon goes to wake Yuri to hand him his clothes and call him for breakfast. When Yuri checks out the clothes she brought and those in his wardrobe, he realizes they all look brand new, which is surprising. At this point, he's gotten used to living with Lilith, but he still believes there's something suspicious about her. When he gets to the table for breakfast, he enjoys the food as usual, but hears a knock on the door. Lilith checks the door, and it turns out to be a delivery of a new and rare model of Game Boy that Yuri really likes. Although he's first pleased, Yuri wonders why he got the package, so Lilith asks him if he likes it. When he realizes she gave him the game and the new clothes, his suspicion alarms trigger again. He immediately asks her what she's trying to achieve by giving him these things that he likes. Lilith is surprised and tries to explain, but Yuri accuses her of trying to control him by giving him free stuff. Amused, Lilith agrees that she's trying to tame him and make him hers. He's surprised, but she later makes it clear that she's kidding. Regardless, Yuri tells her she'll never tame him and he'll never do as she pleases. He promises that he won't be baited by these things, but instead he'll make her his to switch the table. Lilith is surprised and turns red, but Yuri insists that he's going to make her his own. Later that day, Yuri does some work and Lilith brings in some tea, which he likes. Moments later, she brings in some pastries for him to try. After that, she comes to ask him if there's anything he needs help with, and still comes at another time if he needs help sharpening his pencil. When she later comes 2 more times, he loses his grip and tells her to shut up. When he asks what she's trying to accomplish by stopping him from studying, she apologizes and explains that she was just trying to be helpful. Eventually, Yuri tells her she can stand next to him while he studies so she'll not be lonely. She obliges but explains that she wasn't really lonely. Sometime later, when he's alone, Yuri remembers that Lilith has been gone for a while. He goes downstairs to spy on her and he decides something suspicious is going on when he notices her acting restless. When she goes to the backyard, he figures there must be some sort of secret there, so he follows her to find out. When he peeks at her, he finds her playing with a stray cat. When she notices him, she asks him if he'd like to pet the nice cat, but Yuri passes. When he doesn't move, she teasingly asks him him if he would like her to pet him too, but he tells her he doesn't, but he's just afraid of cats. Besides that, he angrily states that she's even cuter, which makes Lilith red in the face. Yuri adds that he admired how beautiful she was smiling while petting the cat, but he's afraid of cats. Eventually, Yuri decides that he wants to get over his fear of cats, so Lilith offers to help. However, he tells her he'll handle it himself, so Lilith leaves him to it. When left alone, Yuri decides to use a branch to reach out to the cat, but he jumps back when the cat comes so close and startles it. He decides to try one more time, but it still doesn't work so well. Eventually, Lilith gives him some leftover fish for the cat so he can feed it while she's gone. Yuri excitedly feeds it and attempts to touch it. As he's about to, another badass cat that looks like the biker boyfriend to the white one shows up. It turns out that the gray cat is a rival, so the white cat turns around to tell it to piss off. While the cat talks crap to themselves in cat language, Yuri realizes the white cat is trying to protect him. Mustering every ounce of courage he can, he stands between the cats, so the gray cat splits when he realizes some fish isn't worth getting his backside whooped. Although she was scared, the white cat considers Yuri her knight in shining armor and licks his hand. Lilith soon comes back from the store and comes to check on the young master. When she checks, she finds him petting the stray cat, and he excitedly tells her he can now pet cats. When she expresses her surprise at his quick improvement, he smugly proclaims that he's the master of the mansion after all, but leaves out the part where he almost got hustled by another stray cat. While watching him pet the cat, Lilith almost asks Yuri if he can pet her too, but she doesn't have the courage to. She low-key envies the cat and commends it, so Yuri pets her too, and I don't know where this anime is going at this point. This is some weird Shotokan pedophilic fetish here, but we're going to roll with it. Lilith becomes red in the face and hurries off to go make lunch. As she's leaving, she mistakenly drops the picture of him, and Yuri wonders why on earth she has a picture of him. She's into kids, bro. Without fussing, she admits that he's caught her and tells him she keeps it so she can always see her adorable master. Someone call child services. Oblivious as always, Yuri asks her why she doesn't look at the real thing instead of a picture, so Lilith just leaves since she doesn't know what to say. Eventually, Yuri wonders if she's using this picture for some curse, and finds that more suspicious. Later, Lilith shows up to call him for lunch. When he tastes the food, it's way too delicious, so he decides there must be some secret to this stuff. When he finishes it, he asks her to teach him how to cook. She tries to explain that she wants to cook for him, but he insists. His plan is to watch her cook to find out what secret thing she does to his food. Yuri loudly proclaims that her food is better than anything he's ever had, so much so that he wants to eat her cooking every day. When he mentions that he in fact wants to marry her and cook delicious food for her too, she becomes as red as a cherry. Later, they enter the kitchen to make his favorite stew, so Lilith tells Yuri to cut the vegetables. When Yuri sprawls his fingers across the carrot at an angle perfect enough to chop off his fingers, Lilith quickly steps behind him to help guide his hand. While she's doing that, she whispers that it's like she's embracing him, but he doesn't hear her properly. After that, he cuts onions and realizes why they're the most badass vegetables other than broccoli. They soon finish their preparations and it turns out well. Later that night, dinner is served and Yuri realizes his first time wasn't half bad. He asks Lilith to come join him at the table, but she's initially reluctant. When he insists, she joins him, and Yuri notices that she didn't put anything suspicious in it. When he tastes it, he realizes it's just like the usual food he eats, so she mentions that she may have forgotten a secret ingredient. Yuri immediately gets up to confront her because his suspicions have been confirmed, but Lilith jokes that the secret ingredient is her love for her master. Yuri latches on to the fact that love is a secret ingredient and angrily says the food makes him happy because she makes it with his happiness in mind. She becomes red again, so Yuri further deduces that the mansion and his clothes are always perfect because of this love she has for him. When he asks her this, she has no choice but to agree, but Yuri finds this amazing and asks her how she can have so much love. Greatly embarrassed, she tells him it's a secret for now. Later on, Yuri enjoys a bath while Lilith closes everywhere. While she's in the study, she finds Yuri's flower drawing that he didn't let her see. Meanwhile, Yuri wonders how Lilith knows he likes stews. After he's done, she comes to greet him goodnight. He wonders when she ever sleeps because she seems to be working before he wakes up and after he sleeps. As he's about to fall asleep, he decides she must be doing some sinister thing while he's asleep, so he refuses to sleep. This time, he decides to stay up to find out. Shortly after, Lilith shows up by his side and sits on the bed. Half conscious, he asks her why she always goes to sleep after him, and she tells him it's so she can sneak a look at his endearing face while he's asleep. The cat from before jumps on Yuri's bed, and it's clear she's no longer on the street. The next morning, Lilith helps Yuri prepare for school and checks over and over to ensure he has everything he needs. He complains that she doesn't have to follow him outside, but she worries that the outside world is quite a dangerous place. He simply tells her to keep watch on the house, and she agrees. Before he leaves, she still tries to tidy him up, and Yuri just stares at her. When she notices him staring, she teasingly asks him if he's so charmed by her that he doesn't want to go to school. However, he clarifies that it's almost like they're married, because his mom used to tidy his dad up the same way. He mentions that they were quite lovey-dovey, but this makes Lilith red in the face, so so he finally leaves. Later, a limousine arrives in front of Yuri's school and a butler named Fujisaki opens the door for a young girl named Tsukasa, who thanks her. Tsukasa notices Yuri and recalls that Fujisaki had told her that his parents passed away. She figures that he may not have recovered. Meanwhile, Yuri considers that Lilith has made him late, but he figures she should be fine on her own. When he enters class, some of the nearby kids start to talk about how Yuri's parents died and how all the servants quit. They also gossip about whether he can afford tuition. One other girl tells the talkative boys to shut up, while Tsukasa enters the class and watches Yuri. She flashes back to some years ago when their parents met and he greeted her. He did it so confidently and honestly that it made her very happy because she was quite timid. In the present, she wishes there's something she can do for him. Eventually, she tells herself to be brave, so she gets up to call Yuri's name. Before the words can come out of her mouth, the teacher enters the class and starts talking. Meanwhile, Lilith wonders why the young master is so resistant. She wonders if it's because he doesn't trust her capabilities as a maid yet, and that makes her worried. Because of this, she decides to work as hard as possible so he can accept her soon. At the school, the kids talk about where they went during summer break. Meanwhile, Tsukasa tries to talk to Yuri, but another girl soon calls out to her. During that time, Yuri heads back into class. Later that day, Lilith thinks up a killer dinner to impress Yuri, so she decides to go pick him up from school. She knows he may not like her coming to pick him up from school, but she decides that's part of her job. Meanwhile, Fujisaki reads through Tsukasa's other engagements for the day. Suddenly, she notices Lilith walking by the road and wonders if she's the one. Shortly after, Yuri heads home and he tells himself he can get home himself. Suddenly, he hears some boys admiring a pretty maid and is shocked to see Lilith. He remembers telling her not to come to his school, but he has no choice but to approach her. During that time, Tsukasa starts to despair that she never got to talk to Yuri, so she forces herself to approach him bravely. As she gets close, she spots him talking to Lilith, so she decides to hide. Yuri tells Lilith he told her not to come to his school, but she reminds him that it's part of her duty as a maid. Behind the tree, Tsukasa wonders if what Yuri said about letting go of all his servants was a lie. However, she finds Lilith pretty suspicious. Eventually, Lilith asks Yuri if he's embarrassed about the relationship they share, and Tsukasa almost passes out when she overhears this talk of a special relationship. As the ridiculously honest person that he is, Yuri tells Lilith that he doesn't want anyone else to see her because they'll be mesmerized if they see a maid as beautiful as she is. This makes Lilith red in the face as usual. Meanwhile, Tsukasa almost explodes out of excitement and almost blows her cover. She believes Yuri is flattering the maid and notes that the maid seems to be liking it too. Eventually, she concludes that there must be some forbidden romance between them, and she believes Yuri must be in love with the maid. She continues eavesdropping and hears Lilith apologizing for this morning. Lilith mentions that it's been a long break, so she thought Yuri would want to spend all his time together with her. The mention of this makes Tsukasa go wild with excitement, and she thinks about how a man and a woman must not be alone together. She remembers that Yuri is still a child and considers that the age gap is quite taboo. However, she believes that must be what makes it so passionate, especially since she's read about it from books. To be honest, romance books are one of the leading causes of women's brains going mushy. Eventually, Yuri responds to Lilith that he'd love to watch over her if he can. This surprises her, so he explains that he's been thinking about her the whole time he's been at school, and he couldn't wait to see her face again. He adds that he would spend the 24 hours with her every day if he could, and Lilith almost explodes in embarrassment. Nearby, Tsukasa screams in excitement and can't contain the powerful throbbing in her heart. She notices that Yuri still has the honest look in his eyes, and his eyes are even more honest while he looks at Lilith. She decides to watch them for a while longer, until Fujisaka discovers her and tells her she's been waiting. Tsukasa claims she can explain, and Fujisaki notices the people she's been watching. When Lilith notices Fujisaki, she approaches her, and it's clear they both know each other. Tsukasa is more surprised, but Lilith mentions her name and thanks her for taking care of Yuri. Lilith asks her if she can count on her to continue being his friend, so Tsukasa agrees, completely embarrassed. When Lilith leaves, Tsukasa confirms that Lilith and Fujisaki are acquainted. Tsukasa points out that Lilith is such a lovely person and so is her outfit, which Fujisaki agrees with. When Tsukasa asks if she can wear the same outfit, Fujisaki explains that she'll quit if she has to. The next day, the entire house sparkles like it was scrubbed with a detailed toothbrush. Lilith soon steps out to get stuff for dinner but leaves her phone. When Yuri gets home, he looks around for Lilith but doesn't find her. When he figures out she has gone shopping, he decides to binge on comics and enjoy himself till she returns. Meanwhile, Lilith looks around, unsure of what to cook for dinner. She tries to look for something in season, then eventually finds a fish called sori. Sadly, the seller tells her he's fresh out of sori because it sells out quickly, so he offers her something else. Lilith turns it down and decides to check other shops, but still doesn't find it. She considers giving up, but later changes her mind when she remembers that she wants the young master to have a delicious meal. Because of this, she decides to check in the nearby town. This kind of energy should be the bare minimum for anyone looking for work as a maid though. Go get it, girl. At the house, Yuri finds his snacks and comics but starts to worry when Lilith hasn't returned. He wonders why she didn't contact him. Meanwhile, Lilith gets down from a bus and hurries to the store in the next town because it's getting dark. At the house, Yuri notices how quiet things are without her and wonders if she's out doing something else she doesn't want him to know. She usually leaves a note but didn't leave one this time. Eventually he decides to call her, but he finds her phone on the kitchen cabinet. While that's happening, Lilith finally finds some sorry, which makes her happy. When she realizes how late it has gotten, she checks her bag for her phone so she can call Yuri, but soon realizes she left her phone at home. Meanwhile, Yuri waits in silence. When he hears a noise, he rushes to the door hoping it's Lilith, but soon finds out it's the cat. In the next town, Lilith doesn't find a bus back home because of some delay that's affecting other people. At this point, she gets worried that she won't be able to get home. Meanwhile, Fujisaki murmurs about how Tsukasa demanded she go get her manga immediately. As she's about to leave, she notices Lilith looking for a bus at the bus stop. At the house, Yuri thinks about how he shouldn't be surprised if Lilith disappears suddenly since she appeared the same way. He tries to console himself that he's better off without a suspicious maid, but it doesn't quite sink in. As it turns out, Fujisaki helps Lilith back to town and asks her what she was doing at the next town. Lilith excitedly tells her she was shopping for dinner and explains that she couldn't find the ingredients in the other town. Fujisaki asks her when she got here, and Lilith tells her it's been a month. Eventually, she asks Lilith if she's certain she wants to be here again, and Lilith replies that she is. Shortly after, Fujisaki drops Lilith off. When Lilith enters, she finds Yuri on the couch. She rushes to apologize for not contacting him before coming late, so he looks at her and asks if she has cast a curse on him. She looks at him in confusion, so he asks if she has cast a curse on him to make him sad when she's not around. He claims he was not like this when she wasn't around and he was all alone. Apparently, he now feels anxious and lonely without her, so he asks her what would have happened if she didn't come home. Lilith can't bring herself to utter a word, but Yuri soon tells her he won't be able to live without her with such a curse on him. This further surprises her, but she soon smiles and holds his hands. She agrees that she cast a curse on him, but she commends him for doing well and staying home on his own. Flustered, Yuri asks her not to go missing without telling him anymore, and she agrees. Meanwhile, Fujisaki hands Tsukasa the manga. When Tsukasa thanks her, Fujisaki reminds her she's not her errand runner, so Tsukasa apologizes. Eventually, Tsukasa shows her a costume she likes to wear and pleads with her. However, Fujisaki tells her she'll stop working there the next day, so Tsukasa begs her not to reconsider. Sometime later, Lilith dresses up formally instead of in her usual maid costume. She wonders if the dressing is weird but hopes her young master notices her. Later, she's seen in her normal maid attire while cleaning the house. Yuri secretly watches her while Lilith wonders how things came to this. She wants Yuri to grow up healthy and well, which is why she came to the mansion. However, she wonders why he's so suspicious of her, but later realizes she came in uninvited. She realizes she's going to have a negative influence on him at this rate, so she decides she needs to get closer to him for him to grow up healthy. Over time, she decides to watch over him carefully and follow him around. At one point, he catches her following him again, so he confronts her about it. After stuttering, she claims he's always monitoring her too, but he runs away so he doesn't let her discover his weaknesses. Lilith tries to stop him but trips. Yuri tries to help stabilize her, but he gets a face full of her package. She mistakenly knocks him down and becomes worried, but he soon gets up and promises to also watch over her. He promises that he won't run away or let her go, which makes Lilith blush. Later, Lilith realizes her plan to get closer to Yuri isn't going as planned. While she's cleaning, he starts spying on her again, and she becomes worried he's frowning this time. To redeem herself from her last mistake, she decides to act more grown-up and maid-like. Eventually, she smiles at him and asks him if he doesn't get tired of watching her so much, hoping to sound grown-up. However, that makes Yuri more suspicious, so he accuses her of trying to divert his attention so she can get away with her plots. She becomes embarrassed, so he makes it worse by saying that she's beautiful when she's working too, so he can't get bored no matter where he looks from or what she's doing. He claims he could watch her for hours or his whole life, so Lilith rushes away to hide herself. After closing the door, she crumbles and realizes she can't behave like a well-composed adult because of how honest Yuri is. So, she plans to do so the next time. The next time, he watches her packing some clothes. When Lilith spots him, she decides to get his guard down by showing she's a dependable grown-up. This time, she bends forward and unveils all her frontal might to tell him she knows about his feelings, but this only makes Yuri further suspicious. This makes things worse, even though Lilith was simply trying to tell him she understands him. To make things worse, Yuri states that she knows that he's trying to get to know her better because she's all he ever thinks about. He wonders how she can see through all that, so Lilith realizes that her plan has failed. Once more, she collapses in her room and realizes her plan to get closer to Yuri is getting nowhere. She knows he doesn't hate her, but she knows he won't trust her if this keeps happening. Eventually, she gets a brilliant idea. Shortly after, she suggests to him that they play together since they're alone in the mansion. However, she says they're going to have lots of fun together in an expression that is abominable for a child to see. Luckily, our MC is as clueless as they come, so it doesn't matter. The worst part is that Lilith is equally clueless enough to believe this is a grown-up way of inviting others. Intrigued, Yuri asks if they can really have more fun than what they have now, since everything has been quite fun since she came. He wonders if this is part of her trap too, and wonders if she enjoys making him suspicious. When he becomes confused, Lilith just suggests they play his favorite game, which turns out to be chess. While they're playing, Yuri explains that this is the one game his father taught him. Apparently, his parents were kind people, but they were always busy, but he was always happy whenever they were around. In a flashback, Yuri insists that he wants to play chess with his father. However, his mother explains that his father is working even though he's at home that day. Instead, she suggests that he play with him and suggests that they make the pudding his father likes. Since he's such a downer, he tells her his father said she doesn't know how to cook. This annoys her, so she decides to cook the best pudding ever and make her husband admit that it's delicious. Despite his mother's warning that he doesn't disturb his father, Yuri still enters his father's office. Meanwhile, Yuri's mom tries to break an egg but cracks the shell into the bowl too. While that's happening, Yuri's dad teaches him the names of the pieces on the chessboard. When his mom enters and finds him in the office, Yuri insists that he wants to play with his father and apologizes, so his dad asks her to pardon him. However, Yuri's mom tells her husband he always spoils him, but she later lets it go when he also apologizes. You see, mates, don't try to explain, just apologize. In the present, Yuri reminisces on how fun it was playing chess with his father. When Lilith notices this, she pledges to him that she'll play chess with him whenever he wants. This gesture touches Yuri, so he excitedly proposes that he'd beat her in the match. However, Lilith promises to put up a fight. Sometime later, Yuri sees a paper from the school but doesn't like it. At the house, Lilith decides to make pudding that Yuri will like. When Yuri enters, she greets him but he only answers half-heartedly. This surprises Lilith. Later, she hopes that this pudding might lift his spirits. However, she knows it's more likely that he'd spin this around and call her suspicious for knowing what will lift his spirits. When she finally offers him the pudding, Yuri thanks her for it and shuts the door on her. For a moment, Lilith just stands there shocked because he wasn't suspicious of her. As she leaves, she figures that it must be a good thing since this is how it's supposed to be normally. However, it bothers her that he isn't suspicious of her at all, so she decides to follow him around. She hopes that by following him around, he'll discover her and accuse her of suspiciously following him around, but that doesn't happen. He doesn't notice her despite always being so vigilant. She wonders if he's ignoring her or if he's lost interest in her. Eventually, he reluctantly comes out with a paper, and Lilith worries that he's giving her a dismissal notice. When he eventually hands it to her, it turns out to be a notice for an open house day. He reluctantly explains that his teacher said that servants often attended at their school, so he tells her she's all he has. However, he clarifies that she's suspicious and will attract attention, so he doesn't want others to meet her. But because the open day is the next day, he nervously asks if she'd like to come, and she gladly agrees. She's glad to hear the news and expresses her previous worry that he had lost interest in her. Yuri quickly explains that he's been thinking about how to get her to come all day because she's all he can ever think about. This shocks Lilith as usual, so she whispers that he's all she ever thinks of too, but he doesn't hear. The next day, Lilith decides to pick out something to wear. She remembers that Yuri had told her that the parents and teachers dress strictly so she can't wear her normal maid outfit. She had offered to dress more fancy, but Yuri gets worried that she'll get the entire class obsessed with her. Eventually, he asks that she dress in normal clothing. She soon picks some nice dresses, but falls into despair when she realizes they expose too much skin. At the school, Yuri hopes Lilith will be able to come, since she doesn't have that many clothes. When two parents walk past him, he remembers his parents. Later, the students in the class talk about how their parents are coming, but Yuri doesn't look too happy. Tsukasa notices this too, but can't say anything. Shortly after, the teacher enters and asks the parents and guardians to enter the class. When they enter, Yuri doesn't notice Lilith, which makes him sad. Eventually, he tells himself it's better she doesn't come since she's too suspicious. He wonders why he was hoping she'd come, but Lilith soon barges in dressed in a suit that matches Fujisaki's. Apparently, she had requested help from Fujisaki, who had shown up with a suit right away. Later that evening, Lilith and Yuri head back home. Lilith apologizes for coming late because it took a long time to prepare, but Yuri just thanks her for coming that day and tells her she made him happy. This makes her smile, so she thanks him too. Sometime later, Yuri runs around in the house, so Lilith asks him what he's up to. He explains that he's practicing for the race event on the sports day. Eventually, she offers to help him practice, but he doesn't know how she'll do that. She soon gives him a cheerleading demo, but Yuri just stares at her. When she notices this, she becomes red in the face again and asks him why he's not practicing with her. To her surprise, Yuri just explains that he couldn't help it because it was so cute. He adds that he's certain that he can get first place with her rooting for him. However, he asked her that she doesn't do it on the day of the sports so others don't see how cute she is. Later, he reluctantly asks if she'd like to come support him on the day of the sports, which she gladly agrees to. That day, Lilith comes to pick him up from school, but Yuri reminds her that he had said she doesn't need to come pick him up. She agrees, but mentions that she couldn't wait to see his face, and he gladly agrees that he felt the same way. His bold statement unsettles Lilith's initial confidence, so he continues by saying he kept thinking about it during class so much that he has no idea what they studied today. Still embarrassed, Lilith tells him to pay attention in class, so Yuri reminds her not to come pick him up at school again. Meanwhile, Tsukasa eavesdrops as usual to get her daily dose of excitement. She mentions that it's nice to see the pair together, but Fujisaki mentions that she doesn't think she should be spying on people like this. However, Tsukasa insists it's part of the thrill and hopes she could experience something so exciting. When she turns to Fujisaki to fulfill her fantasies, Fujisaki tells her it's time to head home. Tsukasa considers it such a downer that Fujisaki is so boring, so Fujisaki emotionally asks Tsukasa if she doesn't think she's sufficient. The display is so strong that Tsukasa tells her she loves her and begs that she do it one more time. Meanwhile, Yuri enjoys an incredible snack that Lilith prepared. He compliments her skills as amazing amazing and notices a strange book in her hand. When he asks about it, she informs him that she'll do some research into training methods to help him with his training. This excites Yuri, so they plan to work hard together. Sometime later, Yuri practices throwing some balls in a basket but doesn't get it in. From the research she did, Lilith shows him the proper way to do it, and he almost gets the ball in until the other stray cat knocks it out of the way. Later, he practices pulling a rope and Lilith teaches him the proper positioning. He does well until he throws himself off the rope. He doesn't seem to be making much improvement, but Lilith reminds him that he's going to improve with practice since that's the point. They move to the final training, which is running, so Lilith cheers for him. While he's running, she praises his pace, so he tries to run past the finish line to impress her. As he's about to, the cat jumps on him again in an attempt to catch a bird and knocks him down. Later that day, Yuri collapses due to tiredness. Lilith soon enters to check on him and offers to give him a massage so his tiredness doesn't affect him the next day. She soon begins to massage his legs, and he tells her she's amazing because it feels so good. Suddenly, he asks her if this is part of her magic, and he finds this suspicious too. However, Lilith claims that she knows what makes him feel good, so he tells her it's only fair. She tells him what makes her feel good too. This makes Lilith as red as a tomato, of course. Later on, they continue their practice and Yuri keeps improving. Sometime later, Tsukasa goes to see Fujisaki so she can stay and study for a while. Fujisaki tells her to sit and eventually asks if something is wrong when Tsukasa sighs. Tsukasa tries to cover it up, but when Fujisaki insists, Tsukasa explains that her parents can't make it to her sports day the next day because of her work. She explains that she smiled at it like a grown-up in front of them, but she realizes she's just a kid and starts to cry. Surprised, Fujisaki holds her hands and asks Tsukasa for the chance to accompany her the next day. When Fujisaki promises to not ever leave her alone, Tsukasa hugs her tightly and starts to cry. Suddenly, Fujisaki notices something fishy and soon realizes that Tsukasa's tears were actually fake. The next morning, Yuri wakes up earlier than his alarm. Today's the big day, so he plans to be prepared. When he enters the kitchen, she notices Lilith preparing food early, and he overhears her hopes that he likes the food, and that makes him smile. Before Yuri leaves for school, he asks Lilith to come dress comfortably. Later on, the students gather for the sports. The first game they're to play is tug of war, so Yuri puts on a red ribbon because he isn't here to play. He's got that crazy look in his eyes, and he's ready to show the result of all his training. Nearby, Tsukasa notices Yuri's pumped. However, some other kids soon tell Yuri not to drag them down, but Yuri just tells them the same thing. This shocks the other boys, and a tense atmosphere develops that excites Tsukasa since she likes drama. Moments later, Lilith shows up and cheers Yuri on to do his best from the sidelines. Tsukasa watches the whole thing and realizes Yuri is so enthusiastic this year because of the maid. When Lilith mentions that she has a reward waiting for him if he wins, Tsukasa's mind starts to run wild and she wonders if Yuri's gonna get laid for winning the game. Tsukasa almost runs wild and starts to think about how deliciously taboo the whole thing is. Because of this, Tsukasa plans to help Yuri get to victory because that's what good wingmen do. Because of her desires for illicit relationships, she places a hand on his shoulder and cheers him on to win. He's shocked when he notices her nose is bleeding, probably from all the excitement, but she tells him not to worry. She suggests that they work as a team and win this thing. When they start the tug of war, Tsukasa pulls hard for Yuri's reward and for the sake of love. Yuri's team pulls with all their might and they win that match. When they win, Tsukasa gladly tells Yuri he can now get his reward from his maid. However, Yuri clarifies that he just wants to win and see Lilith smile. Soon, Lilith shows up and praises Yuri for his effort, which makes him blush. The weight of the emotion is so strong on Tsukasa that she collapses to her knees because of how beautiful they are together. Later on, the students move on to the race, so Fujisaki speaks with Lilith. She points out that Lilith has been coming to Yuri's events and asks her if she's really sure about this. However, Lilith tells her it won't be a problem since the young master requested it. Later, they all sit down to have lunch together. When Tsukasa notices that Yuri's lunch must taste delicious, Lilith offers her some of it, so she agrees. Tsukasa is mesmerized by how delicious the food is, but Yuri simply asks Lilith if it was uncomfortable for her to make time for his events and even wake up early to make his lunch. However, she tells him that it's not, and she's happy to do it. Oddly, he asks her if he's good at running, which confuses her. It turns out that the parents and guardians are having an obstacle course, but Lilith didn't know about this. The kids cheer for their parents and mention that some of them are professional track runners. However, Lilith starts to worry about making mistakes that will disappoint her young master after he's become so dependent on her. Regardless, she easily scales all the obstacles, hell-bent on helping her young master grow up healthy. At one point, someone almost knocks her down, but Yuri cheers her on, and that motivates her because that's all she needs. She ended up getting first position, with Fujisaki coming in second. Fujisaki pants terribly and realizes she should have worn a tracksuit, so Lilith realizes that's why Yuri asked her to dress comfortably. When she meets Yuri, she tells him she did her best for him, but the other children children get angry when they realize that he got his maid to get first place for a race among parents and guardians. However, Yuri defends Lilith by explaining that she's his precious family, so the other kids back off. This makes Lilith almost teary, so she thanks Yuri, but she asks him if he thinks it's alright to call her family since she's just a maid, so Yuri tells her that a maid who's so cute, makes good food, and can do anything is much more than a maid. This surprises Lilith, so Yuri tells her she was shining above everyone else on the track and he's happy whenever she is. He confesses that seeing her happy makes his chest squeeze in and mentions that it must be because she's family. For a moment, Lilith remains silent but reluctantly explains that she doesn't think that's why. Confused, Yuri asks her if she's controlling his mind to feel that way and finds it more suspicious. However, this just makes her laugh. Sometime later, Lilith goes to the market to get some cabbage. While she's shopping, she notices a kid talking to her mother, and that makes her remember how Yuri called her his precious family. It soon begins to rain, and Yuri notices this while at home. Moments later, Lilith gets home drenched in the rain, so Yuri rushes to get her a towel. While she cleans up, he suggests she take a bath so she doesn't catch a bath. Flustered, Lilith jokingly asks him if he wants to take a bath with her, but he bluntly tells her that they can't do that until they're married. She's confused, but he tells her she's impatient and walks off. Shortly after, Lilith brings him some tea while still red in the face. When Yuri tastes it, he immediately spits it out because it's salty. When Lilith realizes she mistakenly put in salt instead of sugar, she rushes off to redo it. Later, Yuri watches Lilith carefully because she's never made a mistake, so he figures something has gotten into her. While she's cleaning, she mistakenly knocks a book down on her head, so Yuri rushes out to check on her. She sustains a bleeding nose but nonchalantly goes to check on the laundry, so Yuri figures that something is wrong. While she's leaving, she collapses to her knees after getting dizzy, so Yuri touches her and realizes she's burning up. He immediately pushes her to the bed and tells her to rest and take the day off. When she tests herself with a thermometer, it's clear she has a fever, so Yuri wonders if she has a cold. He wonders where he can get medicine or if he should get a doctor. While he's looking around, Lilith gets up to continue her work, stating that there's so much to be done. Yuri notices she's not walking well, so he grabs her hand and tells her to rest so he can call a doctor. Suddenly, he notices her crying. When he asks what's wrong, she explains that she's a maid and her job is to take care of him. She points out that being like this won't let her be by his side anymore, so she insists that she's alright. When she collapses again, Yuri tells her it's not a problem because he won't let her go for such a flimsy reason. He hugs her and tells her to rest until she gets better. The next day, Lilith's already out spreading clothes, so Yuri confirms that she's feeling better. He tells her it puts him off to see her like that, and that makes her blush again. When he notices her face is red again, he moves close and stares at her, but she becomes further embarrassed and avoids his gaze. Yuri doesn't like this, so he tries to look at her face, but she runs away. Later, Lilith cleans up the house to make up for lost time. Suddenly, Yuri joins her in cleaning the windows, which unsettles Lilith. She tries to convince him to let her do the job since it's her duty, but Yuri insists that it's faster if they do it together. He explains that he's not really busy and he doesn't want to make her work right after she falls sick. While she listens, he adds that he also wants to spend as much time with her as he can, and every second if he can. When he asks if that's wrong, her face turns boiling hot. She eventually lets him help her until all that's left is sweeping and dinner. Suddenly, Yuri sneezes while they're working, and Lilith worries he's caught her cold. However, he clarifies that this isn't the case, but he just feels a bit chilly. Immediately, Lilith gets him a sweater, but Yuri wonders if she also doesn't feel the cold, especially with the way she is dressed. He finds that suspicious too, so he asks her why she's always exposed. Amused, she tells him it's for him so he can learn womanly charms, but Yuri just grabs her hands and confirms she's cold. He immediately wraps the sweater around her so she doesn't catch a cold again and reminds her she's a precious member of his family. This touches Lilith, so she thanks him for the sweater. Later that day, Lilith tells Yuri about a plan and he decides to trust her. The plan is about her completing his costume for the Halloween party, the same costume Yuri plans to surprise Tsukasa with. Apparently, Tsukasa invited Yuri to the party, so Lilith points out that Yuri and Tsukasa have grown close. Since our boy is clueless about the dynamics of human relationships, he asks her if she believes so, and Lilith confirms that Tsukasa is a good friend. Moments later, Lilith asks him what color she should make the stone at the top of his Halloween staff, so he asks her to pick a color she likes. After, he reminds her that Tsukasa wants her to come to the party too, so he asks her what costume she's wearing. This embarrasses her, so she asks if he strongly wants to see her dress up, and our boy tells her he really wants to, because he's certain she'd be cute. This makes her red once more, and he makes it worse by coming close and saying he wants to make some Halloween memories with her. On the day of the party, Yuri dresses as a sage, while Lilith dresses up as a dragon. When Tsukasa sees them, she's amazed by the sight of their costume. She immediately starts thinking of romantic backstories about feisty dragons who got tamed by the love of a wise sage. Eventually, she welcomes them in and shows them a boatload of treats to enjoy themselves with. Yuri is surprised because he's never seen so many pastries before, but Tsukasa explains that her baker worked hard for their sake. Later, Yuri thanks Tsukasa for inviting them because he's never dressed up or been to a Halloween party before. After that, he also thanks Lilith for making his costume, which Tsukasa finds finds pretty impressive. When Yuri points out that she chose green as the color of the stone of the staff, he expresses intrigue when he learns that she likes the color green. Yuri doesn't realize his eyes are green, but Lilith mentions that green is her favorite color because it's gentle and kind. The sight of the entire thing makes Tsukasa giggle in excitement because she has front row seats to see the romance. Later, Tsukasa locks eyes on Fujisaki and attempts to make her dress up. Fujisaki refuses, but Tsukasa makes the other maids subdue her and dress her up. They force Fujisaki to dress up as a princess, and she looks wildly uncomfortable, but Tsukasa goes wild at the sight of it. Yuri and Lilith tell Fujisaki that she looks beautiful, but she finds it awkward. However, Tsukasa embraces her and convinces her she doesn't look awkward, then suggests they have a photo shoot. When the party ends, Tsukasa realizes she had so much fun. She believes this was because Fujisaki participated with them, even though it made her uncomfortable, so she thanked her for the effort. The next day, Tsukasa approaches Yuri while he's leaving school and hands him some pictures from yesterday. Yuri likes the pictures, so Tsukasa eventually asks him why Lilith hasn't come to pick him up. He explains that Lilith is probably busy since she's the only maid he has, and he plans to go help her. Meanwhile, Lilith hurries up with her chores so she can finish before Yuri comes back. She soon receives some mail deliveries that make her uncomfortable. While Yuri heads home, he recalls how Tsukasa had commented that he and Lilith share a warm bond. He thinks about how she makes him happy, and he realizes she's stopped being suspicious lately. Because of that, he hurries home so he can see her. When he gets home, she's shocked to see him and quickly hides a piece of paper behind her. That triggers Yuri's suspicion mechanism, so he stares at her, but Lilith quickly tries to divert him by asking him if he missed her while he was at school. He replies that this isn't why he's staring, but confesses that he actually thought about her all day and couldn't focus in class because he was wondering what she was up to. This makes Lilith flustered as usual, but she reminds him to focus in school. Eventually, Yuri asks her about what she hid behind her back, so she promises to give him a proper explanation after he has dinner. Yuri finds this suspicious and wonders why she wouldn't tell him now and why she looks so sad. While having dinner, Yuri realizes the food Lilith prepared tastes bland and notices how silent she is. Suddenly, she asks him if he remembers the first time he ate the food she cooked and explains that his pleasure made her glad she came to the mansion. She adds that today will be the last day she speaks with him because she received a message to return to the mansion where she was before. She explains that she had hoped she would get more time before she was discovered. Confused, Yuri asks if she came here without informing anyone, and she affirms that. This makes Yuri angry and he states he won't accept this. He explains that she hasn't lifted the spell that makes his heart race or makes his heart lonely, so he can't let her go anywhere else. He reminds her she promised not to leave and she taught him there's much to enjoy in life and she makes him happy. He reminds her that he's her master, and Lilith becomes teary. She thanks him and confidently throws the letter in the trash. Yuri asks her if she's sure she can do that, so she confirms that she can, since he's her master. Excited, Yuri hugs her and tells her he's glad. Sometime later, a teacher looks through the graphs the students in Yuri's class have prepared. Tsukasa notices Yuri staring at his graph, which seems incomplete. Later, she approaches him to ask if he's thinking about the assignment they gave them earlier. However, Yuri confesses that the main issue is that he can't stop thinking about Lilith. Although he realizes this, he doesn't know what to do about it. This excites Tsukasa as usual, so she asks him to tell her more about it in case she can help him with his troubles. Yuri obliges and he explains that Lilith has made him curious and suspicious since she came in and he can't take his eyes off her. He adds that his heart races when he thinks about her, his chest gets tight and he can't sit still. When the excitement gets too much for Tsukasa, her nose starts to spurt out blood like a tap, but she covers it with a napkin and claims that it happens all the time. Eventually, she asks Yuri how Lilith seems to him as a person, so he mentions that she's quite suspicious. When she asks what he means, he explains that she showed up out of nowhere and asked to work for free. He adds that her eyes are beautiful and so is her work culture. He mentions that being near her makes him happy, and this makes Lilith so suspicious. Immediately, Tsukasa sees the light and almost gets blinded. Eventually, she explains to Yuri that what he's experiencing is not suspicion, but love. Confused, Yuri adds that the meals Lilith makes are extra delicious and she smells very nice, which is suspicious. The barrage of words hit Tsukasa like punches and she almost dies due to how juicy the drama is. She realizes this is more intense than the story she reads, so she thanks her stars for this opportunity. Eventually, she comes back to Earth and she asks him what bothers him. He explains that Lilith's smile makes him happy, her sadness makes him sad, and he can't contain himself when he sees her talking to other people. He expresses how his mind doesn't seem to be his own, and he doesn't understand how she's so suspicious, but he doesn't ever want to leave her. He expresses how he's become more messed up since he met her, and he climaxes by realizing he's sick. The whole time, Tsukasa has been brimming with pleasure and anticipation, hoping he'd conclude that he's in love. It's such an anticlimax, but Yuri tells her that he thinks he's seriously ill and Lilith won't tell him. Confused, Tsukasa starts to wonder if she's mistaken the nature of the relationship between Yuri and Lilith. When he asks what she means, she asks him if he's been really oblivious to the emotions between them all this time because she had thought he was just being humble. Eventually, Yuri wonders how he can fix this confusion and mess he's brought upon himself. Suddenly, the wise sage Tsukasa stops him from speaking and proceeds to dish out some intense romantic knowledge she got from spicy novels novels, she's too young to read. She tells him that what he's feeling is not sickness. She mentions that she learned from a book that his situation is more painful and agonizing than sickness, but it's something you want to treasure just the same. She tells him that he's in love, and Yuri stares at her awestruck. While he walks home, he wonders what love means. Eventually, he gets home and Lilith welcomes him home. She mentions that he came late and she was very lonely because he usually comes early. Later, she jokes that she was just kidding, but Yuri simply walks past her. This shocks Lilith because she thought they had grown closer recently, so she quickly blocks him to try once more. This time she asks if he'd like her to warm him up with her bare skin because of the cool weather, then mentions that she's joking, but he doesn't respond to her at all. This makes Lilith worried because that's not how he would respond normally, and she hopes he hasn't come to hate her. She convinces herself he might not have heard her, so she directly asks him again if he will have dinner, his bath, or would like to have her. When she mentions that she was just joking, Yuri just walks away once more before she can apologize. She realizes there's some problem, so she grabs him and asks if he's feeling ill. Yuri tells her he's fine and asks what the matter is, but she doesn't know what to say. Eventually, she mentions that he seems unwell, so he tells her he was just thinking about something, and he apologizes for making her worried. She asks him what he's worried about, but Yuri is unable to bring himself to say it. He tells her it's a secret for now and goes into his study. The next day, Yuri asks Tsukasa about love, and he adds that he's tried to read books to find out, but he's not been able to find anything that explains his feelings for Lilith. Because of that, Tsukasa suggests they discuss it in another place and promises to show him what love is. After school, Yuri shows up at her place and she excitedly welcomes him. She immediately gets him settled in and even introduces him to her mother. Even though he's being warmly welcomed, Yuri realizes he doesn't like this atmosphere because it reminds him of his past. Later, they both sit down under a shade to enjoy some pastries that Lilith asks Yuri to give Tsukasa. Tsukasa loves the pastries and becomes mesmerized with how passionately Yuri talks about Lilith's cooking. Eventually, Tsukasa suggests they invite Lilith over so she can join them, but Yuri expresses worry that Lilith might decide to leave his mansion and work with Tsukasa because of how grand their place is. He realizes Tsukasa has a lot of the things he lost, and Lilith would make much more money working for her. However, Tsukasa tells him she's certain Lilith wouldn't think that way because she looks very happy being with him. Surprised, Yuri asks her if she really thinks so, and it makes him happy when she affirms it. The sight of his emotion makes Tsukasa shiver with excitement again. This girl clearly has a romance fetish. Eventually, she brings up the topic of love again and gives him her collection of romance novels to show him. However, Fujisaki takes the novels from her and reminds her that the master would scold her if he found out that she brought out the novels without permission. Tsukasa begs Fujisaki, but Fujisaki doesn't budge, so Yuri returns home without understanding what love is. When Yuri gets home, Lilith welcomes him back excitedly and eventually asks him what's wrong when he just stares at her. However, our boy soon remembers how Tsukasa had said Lilith looks happy with him, and that makes him smile at her. Sometime later, a teacher informs the students that they have an art contest coming up and they'll be drawing pieces to submit. The students ask what they should draw, so she tells them to draw whatever they want. She reminds them to observe what they draw carefully so they can know its true nature. The mention of true nature catches Yuri's attention, so he decides to ask Lilith for permission to draw her. He hopes that he'll be able to expose her true nature by drawing her and learns about love. When she hears it's for a school assignment, she agrees and models for him so he can draw her. While she stands flustered, he recognizes the two moles under her eyes and the one on her jugs, but that makes Lilith further flustered. If I got $1 for every time someone turned red in this anime, I'd probably make enough money to not have to recap anime for y'all. Eventually, she suggests having a proper pose and proposes that she has to dress properly so he can draw her. She asks him how he'd like to see her and seductively mentions that she'd let him see her however he wants. She shows him several poses, but he tells her he just wants to draw her just as she is. She immediately blushes hard again and wonders if he means he wants to draw her bare. Later, she sits on a chair while he draws her, because this is how he sees her. While he's drawing, she tells him the way he sees her isn't necessarily who she is. She points out that she may look completely different when he doesn't see her, but Yuri finds that intriguing and suspicious. However, he assures her he'll find the true her no matter how she looks, and that makes her laugh. When he's done, he shows it to her and she praises his skills. During the whole thing, Yuri just keeps comparing her to the picture, so he brings out his eraser because she's more beautiful and sensual than what he drew. He immediately erases the entire thing because he can't express her beauty with his abilities. He immediately starts drawing again until he's satisfied with what he gets. The next morning, Yuri ends up with bags under his eyes while he's having dinner. Lilith points this out, but he tells her he's still not done with this drawing. This amazes her, so she jokingly asks him if she's too beautiful to be drawn, but Yuri agrees. He eventually tells her he lost sleep thinking about her, and her face starts glowing red hot again. He confesses that he was thinking about her all night and didn't get any sleep. Immediately, Lilith tells him she'll take the responsibility of putting him to sleep that night. Later that night, she sets up some healing scents to help him rest. He likes it, but he tells her that she smells nicer. This makes her flustered, so she asks him if he'd like to place his head on her lap so that her scent can help him sleep. Matter-of-factly, Yuri tells her he can't so that her legs don't go numb. She doesn't like that, but she later offers him some hot milk, but that doesn't work. Eventually, she breaks out healing music, but he still doesn't sleep. Next up, she gives him a sleeping mask, but that still doesn't work. Finally, she suggests sleeping next to him, but later says she's kidding when he looks at her funny. However, Yuri doesn't play games, and he directly tells her he wants to sleep with her. In those exact words, she becomes flustered as usual and tries to explain that she's a maid, but she eventually concedes. While they lie down, Yuri asks her why she's at this mansion and tells her he wants to learn more about her because he thinks about her so much that he can't sleep. He confesses that he doesn't know much about her, and that scares him. Eventually, she lays a hand on his chest and tells him it's all right. She starts to sing him a lullaby about how she wants to spend the rest of her future by his side. Yuri recognizes the song as a lullaby. His mother and someone else used to sing to him, but he soon falls asleep while wondering who the other person was. The next morning, Yuri excitedly tells her he slept really well thanks to her. She soon serves him his breakfast but notices his surprise. When she asks, he mentions that he doesn't remember what happened the last night, but he remembers feeling nostalgic. When he asks her if she remembers what happened, she doesn't give a direct answer, so he accuses her of dodging his question. He insists that she tell him what she did, since it's her fault he couldn't sleep. When she does a reply, he insists that he's going to have her sleep with him again tonight after drawing. Shortly after, Yuri wins the award for drawing Lilith. Sometime later, Yuri has a dream of proposing to a woman that looks like Lilith. When Lilith wakes him up, he sees her as this lady once more, but she figures he's half asleep. As Lilith leaves to prepare breakfast, he wonders who the woman he saw in his dream was. Later that day, while Yuri's writing, Lilith enters the study. He's so amazed that he mistakenly drops his pencil. He soon starts to wonder why she's dressed up, and he becomes fearful that she may be going on a date. Lilith picks up the pencil for him and asks him if he's really cool with her taking the day off, so he quickly tells her it's okay since it's a master job to let his servants have breaks. Lilith soon leaves the house and walks around because it's not yet time for her meeting. While she looks around, she smells something really nice and traces the scent to a small bakery. Inside, she finds delicious-looking pastries and considers buying some for Yuri. While she's looking around, one of the workers offers her a sample, which she considers very delicious. Once she's done shopping, Lilith continues walking around until she reaches a cafe. While she's there, she hopes that the young master is doing well and he's had his meal. She starts to get quite worried, but Fujisaki soon arrives and apologizes for being late. For the first time, Fujisaki dresses quite casually, and it turns out she also has the day off. Later, Fujisaki asks her if she really needs to be worried about her master on her day off, so Lilith asks Fujisaki if she's ever worried about Tsukasa on her days off. Immediately, Fujisaki tells her she doesn't worry in the least, and it's not surprising since Tsukasa always spends her time reveling in romance novels. Fujisaki assures Lilith that she doesn't need to be worried, so Lilith jokingly tells her that she seems to have changed quite a lot. She remembers hearing a lot of rumors about Fujisaki during their days in the academy. The Maid's Academy, probably? Apparently, rumor has it that Fujisaki was the worst student at school until she suddenly changed one day. Lilith guesses that she must have changed after she met Tsukasa because the air around her is so tender. However, Fujisaki politely asks her to stop because this is embarrassing for her, and as expected, she starts to blush too. Eventually, Lilith tells her she admires her relationship with Tsukasa, and she asks how she can become like the two of them. However, Fujisaki interjects that Lilith's relationship with Yuri is more interesting to her, and Tsukasa seems to be equally interested. Fujisaki advises her to focus on opening her heart because her master would open up his heart to her then. This surprises Lilith, and she confesses that she's not certain she can do that. She suddenly recalls the experience she had while lying next to him. Meanwhile, Fujisaki flashes back to a time when she was younger and was in the academy. She remembers that Lilith seemed to be burdened by a different kind of loneliness when compared to hers back then. Apparently, Lilith had such an unapproachable air around her, and she's surprised that she now came to speak with her. This time, Fujisaki tells Lilith that she believes she's also changed. Suddenly, Fujisaki's phone starts to ring, and it turns out to be from the nosy Tsukasa, who's asking her to hurry up and show her the picture she took of Lilith. Tsukasa tells her to hurry back to spill the romantic gist concerning what they discussed, so Fujisaki tells Lilith she has to leave. As she's about to leave, Lilith points out that Fujisaki does care about Tsukasa, but Fujisaki simply tells her she was happy they were able to talk today. Before she leaves, she advises Lilith to tell her master the truth because she believes she has what it takes to tell him now. As it turns out, Yuri was sitting not far away and eavesdropped on their entire conversation. While Fujisaki leaves, he wonders what this thing Lilith is supposed to talk to him about is. Apparently, he couldn't help himself but to follow her here, and he starts to wonder she's hiding something from him. Suddenly, a nearby baby starts to cry, and the mother starts to sing the lullaby that Lilith sang to him the night before. Later that evening, Lilith returns home and tells Yuri she brought plenty of gifts. Unexpectedly, he just stares at her intensely and asks her if there's something she wants to tell him about. This surprises her, so he directly asks her what the talk is. When she asks what he's talking about, he refers to the important thing she needs to tell him. Immediately, she points out that she'll be making hamburger steak that night, but Yuri points out that this is not what he was talking about. He asks her if there's something something important she's keeping from him. He tells her she was out talking with Fujisaki, and Lilith is surprised that he knows. She asks if he followed her, so he affirms that he couldn't help his curiosity. Apparently, she was dressed cuter than usual when she left, and he considered it unfair because she's always in the maid outfit around him. This makes Lilith blush again, so Yuri asks why she wasn't dressed like this with him. Eventually, he brings up the important thing she's supposed to tell him and asks her if it's about how they met in the past. This question shocks Lilith, so she asks him how he knew. Yuri explains that he remembers a few things about his early childhood. He recalls that his parents brought in his young girl, and he figures that Lilith was that young girl. Apart from that, he recalls the lullaby that she sang, which is the same that his mother used to sing to him. When this is true, Lilith affirms that he's saying the truth. Eventually, Yuri asks her why she kept something so important away from him. So Lilith tells him it's because he'll think she's an awful person if she had told him. Apparently, she was afraid that he'd come to hate her, but Yuri tells her he won't. She explains that she considered telling him in the beginning, but she wanted him to remember the whole thing on his own. She explains that she was also worried that he may not remember even if she told him, but Yuri holds her hands and assures her that he remembers. He also assures her that he'll remember everything else he's forgotten about her too. He tells her not to look so sad, so she touches heads with him and rests in his touch. The next morning, Lilith enters Yuri's room but is unable to find him. When she looks through the windows, she finds him outside tending to the garden. When she approaches him, he asks her to give him her hand, and he puts a ring he made out of a flower petal on it. She's quite surprised, so Yuri thinks she doesn't like the flower ring. He's unaware of what the gesture means, so he explains that he's trying to bring back the memories by doing something he did with her many years ago. Lilith remembers the day he gave her a similar flower ring with much nostalgia, but she soon reminds him that he has to get ready for school so he's not late. Before he leaves, he proposes they continue when he gets back home, and he leaves Lilith flustered by what he means by continuing. When Yuri gets to school, he greets Tsukasa. Tsukasa notices a smile on his face and wonders if something good happened to him. However, all that's on Yuri's mind is how he held Lilith's hand the night before. Meanwhile, Lilith pampers the flower ring and tries to avoid letting it dry up. She considers making it a bookmark and grabs a book to keep it in, but a letter mistakenly falls out. The letter turns out to be one of many others she has received and kept. After school, Tsukasa excitedly asks Yuri if he's been able to make some progress with his maid. When she notices her forwardness, she apologizes but expresses that she wants the goodies in the info, but Yuri doesn't know what on earth she's talking about. To clear the air, she explains that he seems to be in a good mood today, so she assumes he's been able to make some progress with his maid. Yuri immediately remembers how Tsukasa had told him that he's in love, and he recalls that he's been so busy trying to remember Lilith that he stopped trying to figure out what love means. Tsukasa confirms her suspicions that he's made some progress and begs him to tell her about it. Confused, he asks her what she wants to know, so she asks for any kind of detail. As the insensitive dweeb that he is, Yuri tells her that they slept together. Those words launch Tsukasa into other dimensions of excitement, and she dies on the spot. Actually, she just faints from hearing how Yuri has climbed the stairs to adulthood. She soon gets up and asks him when he confessed his feelings, but Yuri just asks her what she's talking about. Shocked, Tsukasa retracts violently and asks him if he slept with her without confessing his feelings. She starts to lament about how he's got things in the wrong order, as if that would be the only wrong thing if he ever actually did the deed. Eventually, Yuri asks her what she's talking about, so she clarifies that he has to confess his feelings. Yuri explains that it's not love or romance, but he's just suspicious of Lilith and would like to know her better. However, Tsukasa insists that he's yet to realize that he's in love with his own maid. This shocks Yuri again, so Tsukasa dreamily explains that he can't stop thinking about her because he's in love with her. Yuri thinks back to all the time he's been following her around, and he starts to join the dots about his keen interest in her. He had initially summed it up as suspicion, but he suddenly realizes something. He immediately runs home and thanks Tsukasa for the information. Tsukasa tries to stop him to get more juicy information, but he doesn't wait. While she's looking at him, Fujisaki appears behind her with a menacing look and drags the poor girl away to her piano lessons. Meanwhile, Yuri runs home when he realizes that his feelings for Lilith are not suspicious. He immediately rushes home to tell her and runs out of breath when he gets there. He finds her sweeping and immediately tells her he's in love with her, with a full smile as if it's a grade he got in school. Lilith immediately stops in her tracks, so Yuri adds that he loves her so much, and he loves her gentle voice when she sings him lullabies. He mentions how he loves how she always buys him things even on her days off, and adds that her smile is like the sun shining on him. For an adolescent boy, this boy's got the riz. He continues by saying he loves her amused laughter and her beautiful eyes that draw me in with their sparkles. Take some notes, boys. When he approaches her, Lilith stumbles backwards. Eventually, he stands in front of her and tells her he loves everything about her. At this point, Lilith's clearly about to explode into a puddle of red color. Suddenly, the wind blows in a cinematic way that fuels the moment, and Lilith can't bring herself to say something. Suddenly, someone shows up behind them and accuses Lilith of being nothing but talk. Immediately, Yuri asks the stranger who she is, but she tells him that she has some business with the maid. The woman tells Lilith to leave this place and return to her place at once, but Lilith recognizes the girl as someone named Natsume. When Natsume tells her that she came all this way to get her, Lilith coldly responds that it's good to see her again. Later, they let her in to have some tea, so Lilith introduces Natsume as her former classmate and former colleague. However, Natsume tells her to skip the introductions and just come home. Lilith tells her not to say that, but Natsume reminds her that she sent her a letter to ask her to come back to her mansion. Lilith reminds her that she responded by saying she wasn't going to return, but Natsume insists that's not good enough. She points out that Lilith's master is a child, and she isn't even receiving payment, which makes her disturbed. Natsume mentions that there's no one here, and this mansion is a dump full of problems, and this makes Yuri uncomfortable. When Natsume asks Lilith to come back with her once more, Yuri tells her he's the master of this mansion, and Lilith is his maid. He almost warns her not to take Lilith, but later turns it into a plea. He also adds that he's realized that Lilith is special to him, and she's not even gotten to tell him her feelings too. This further makes Natsume believe that Yuri is just a kid, so she asks how a little run like this can be a master. She tells Lilith that staying here won't do her any good, and she'll be better off staying with her. She asks Yuri if he knows that Lilith returning home with her will guarantee that she gets paid well, and she has a master who's a dependable adult, but he doesn't reply. She adds that her mansion is better, and it'll be better for Lilith's reputation as a maid. Above all, Natsume insists that it'll be better because Lilith will be with her. This lady just doesn't shut up. Suddenly, Lilith clarifies that she's here by her choice, so she reminds Natsume that she won't go with her no matter the number of letters she sends. Lilith thanks her for coming all this way, but Natsume angrily asks why she won't come back with her since she understands her more than this boy. She confesses that Lilith has been on her mind all this while, and she reached out because she cares about her. She asks her why she's choosing such a little shrimp like Yuri over her. However, Lilith finds this rude and points out that her master is no shrimp. Eventually, Natsume pledges to watch for a while to see if Yuri is really cut out to be Lilith's master. She plans to watch closely to see what she even likes about him. First, she plans to watch to see if he has the knowledge and sensibility a master should have, so she asks him to explain the theory of relativity. Surprised, Yuri tells her he doesn't know. Smug, Natsume asks if he really doesn't know, so he asks her if she knows it. That's when she becomes uncomfortable and starts to spin some random stuff about how things are relative. When she rushes through it, Yuri tells her that's impressive. He mentions that he hasn't studied yet, but he plans to. This pleases Lilith and makes her smile, so Yuri smiles in response. However, this annoys Natsume, so she intentionally destroys the moment. She tells Yuri that him being studious doesn't mean he's made to be a master, especially because money is the important thing. Yuri agrees and explains that he doesn't have money, so Natsume shows that he's clearly hopeless. She adds that a master has to be able to manage his finances, so Yuri shows her a piggy bank where he's been saving up a little bit of his monthly allowances. Natsume insists that it's peanuts and Yuri agrees, stating that he hopes it'd be enough to get Lilith a fantastic gift someday. This makes Lilith blush again, but Natsume quickly tries to show off by showing her own money. When she reaches into her pocket, nothing comes out and she realizes that isn't a great bet. When Lilith says something annoying, Natsume comes closer but accidentally knocks over the table lamp. Immediately, Yuri tells her to stand back so she's not hurt by the glass, and he asks her if she's not hurt while Lilith goes to clean it up. Surprised, she tells him she's not, so Yuri expresses gladness. This unsettles Natsume, so she asks what's wrong with him and how he can respond in relief when she just broke something of his. However, Yuri seems confused since it's normal to feel relieved when one's guests are not hurt. This affects Natsume, so she asks to confirm that he's not messing with her. When Lilith shows up, Natsume proposes to Lilith that this boy must be deceiving her with her words, and she can't afford to let her guard down. She insists that something is off, and she refuses to believe that Yuri is her master. Immediately, Lilith becomes dead serious and asks her to stop speaking ill of her master. This surprises Natsume, so she tries to clarify to Lilith that she's trying to help her. However, Lilith politely asks Natsume why she's so fixated on her. She remembers how Natsume would always approach her for every little thing, even at the academy. Lilith admits that Natsume has made her happy at times and she's grateful for it, but she asks her to respect her will this time. This further annoys Natsume, but she reminds Lilith that she's just looking out for her happiness. When Natsume becomes extremely shaken, Yuri watches her intently and remembers how Tsukasa told him that everyone has their own way of expressing their feelings. Tsukasa mentioned that some people even act mean on purpose because they can't bring themselves to tell someone they love them. Yuri finds this strange, but Tsukasa confirms that this is one of the mysteries of the human heart. Eventually, Yuri asks Natsume if she loves Lilith, and both ladies turn to him in surprise. Immediately, Natsume squirms after being put in a corner and she asks him what he's talking about. She insists that this is not the case, but Yuri asks if she's certain since she came all this way for Lilith. When he asks again, Natsume starts to stutter and becomes hot red. Eventually, Yuri confesses that he loves Lilith and that's why he wants her to stay here. When he says this, Natsume becomes embarrassed on his behalf and wonders why he can say something so embarrassing so freely. She asks him if he's not even embarrassed at all, so Yuri asks if it's embarrassing to express one's feelings. That breaks down Natsume's defenses, so she confesses that it's embarrassing to express one's feelings and it's something grown-ups have to hide. That intrigues Yuri, so he asks how people will know you love them if you don't tell them. This makes Natsume reconsider, so she admits that she does love Lilith and she can't help but think about her. She adds that she was worried about her and about what her new life is like. Apparently, that's why she came all this way. When she bears out her feelings, Lilith apologizes for making her worried and thanks her. This touches Natsume, but Lilith reiterates that she's still not going home with her. After Lilith breaks her bubble, Natsume laments that nothing good comes out of saying how you feel. She immediately accuses Yuri of tricking her. The next day, Yuri leaves for school, so Lilith sees him off. When he leaves, Lilith continues her normal cleaning duties and is suddenly approached by Natsume, who's holding another broom. Lilith reminds Natsume that she's a guest and doesn't need to help, but Natsume insists. Apparently, several maids used to do the cleaning back at their mansion. They had their own post and simply had to do what they assigned them to. Natsume decides to join in so she can witness what sort of brutal labor Lilith is being put through. She believes it must be tough for Lilith to clean the entire mansion on her own, but Lilith still doesn't let her. Because of that, Natsume decides to watch her carefully while she carries out her chores. Eventually, Lilith serves them some tea, so Natsume asks her if she's not miserable. Lilith doesn't know what she's talking about, so Natsume asks her if she's not tired of working alone and asks her if she's not considered taking a break. Lilith tells her that it's for the young master, so it's no problem. Natsume realizes Lilith is quite hardworking, so this isn't so much of a problem to her. Moments later, Lilith leaves to prepare because Yuri will be coming back soon. Natsume tries to convince her that she needs to rest, but Lilith rushes out to welcome Yuri. When they greet each other, Lilith notices he's drenched in sweat and guesses why. Yuri confirms her guess that he's drenched because he was running back home because he couldn't wait to see her. This makes Lilith red in the face as usual, and it makes Natsume gasp. Eventually, Lilith tells him he didn't have to run all the way home and figures he must be tired. However, Yuri confesses that he was actually thinking about her throughout his classes, so he got so excited he couldn't help but run. He tells Lilith that he loves today also, and the lady glows red hot. Meanwhile, Natsume gasps once more because of how this kid is putting Lilith on the spot with his embarrassing talk. She realizes no one would know what to say to that, especially when it's someone quite younger than her. In a flashback, Natsume remembers when her master rubbed her head and walked away. In the present, Natsume notices Lilith blushing, and this surprises her. Eventually, Lilith tells the young master that she gets worried that he might trip or hurt himself. She asks him to walk home slowly so she'll know he's safe, so Yuri agrees. Shortly after, Yuri greets Natsume and enters, but Natsume responds reluctantly. When Lilith notices Natsume's expression, she asks her what's wrong, but Natsume doesn't say. Later that evening, Natsume realizes that's the first time she's seen Lilith that day. Moments later, Yuri enters the kitchen to help Lilith out with some cooking. She thanks him but explains that she's almost done already. Eventually, Yuri heads back to the table and asks Natsume if she's really a maid. This surprises Natsume, so Yuri points out that he can't imagine her doing anything maid-like, possibly because he hasn't seen it. When he also points out that she's eating snacks before bed, she insists that she's a maid from her clothing. Annoyed, she enters the kitchen to prove him wrong. It turns out to be a terrible idea, as she soon messes up most of Lilith's chores. After failing terribly, Lilith reminds Natsume that she's a guest here, but Yuri tells her not to force herself to do these things if she can't do them. Surprised, Natsume explains that she can and lifts a bucket of water. She mistakenly spills the water on Lilith and immediately starts to apologize profusely. However, Lilith laughs because of how nostalgic this is. When Yuri asks what she means, Lilith explains that Natsume was always terrible at chores, so she used to help her each time. In a flashback, Natsume recalls how Lilith used to help her, and Lilith remembers that experience made her become very good at doing chores. Eventually, Yuri suggests that they take a shower since they're drenched. Natsume points out that they're not done cleaning, but Yuri insists they do that later since they'll smell bad if they stay soaked. When Natsume tries to protest, Yuri reminds her she may catch a cold. Suddenly, Lilith asks Natsume if she'd like to take a bath with her, but jokingly points out that she was just kidding. This shocks Natsume to her core, but she eventually agrees to bathe with her. While they're in the bath, Lilith apologizes to Natsume for being so hard on her earlier. Natsume remembers the episode, but tries to explain that she was the one who stepped out of bounds. Eventually, Lilith tells her she's relieved she came because it takes a weight off her shoulders. She confesses that she doesn't know how to respond to her young master's affection, and she never imagined he would directly tell her that he loves her. Even though she cared so much about him, he also hadn't expressed his feelings until the moment Natsume came. Up until then, he was only suspicious of her, and she doesn't know how to feel since his confession came all of a sudden. This makes Natsume laugh, so she tells Lilith that she has figured it out even if she hasn't. Lilith is confused, so Natsume explains that she used to think the person she's serving with was a terrible master, trying to lure her down to the mansion and troubling her all the time. However, the face she makes when Yuri tells her he loves her shows she was happy and not troubled. Lilith is surprised to hear this, so Natsume assumes what that means but doesn't say it out loud. I don't know where this movie is going, guys. Eventually, Lilith asks if she really was that obvious, so Natsume tells her she was like an open book. Lilith gets worried worried that she may always be that open and becomes embarrassed. Meanwhile, Natsume just notices how happy Lilith has become and how that happiness has flowed to her too. The next morning, Lilith doesn't find Natsume in the house and doesn't know where she is gone. However, she finds out that she had been reading a Christmas gift catalog in a magazine. Meanwhile, Tsukasa approaches Yuri in school and excitedly asks him if he's made some progress with his maid since the last time. Yuri suddenly remembers how he ran home to confess his feelings, and he realizes he's not given Tsukasa any feedback. Eventually, he tells her that he told Lilith he loves her, and this excites the young girl as usual. She congratulates him and asks what happened next and what she said. She imagines that things must have changed quite a bit since then, but Yuri only mentions that they have a new member of the family. The mention of this sends Tsukasa to cloud 9, and she starts imagining wedding bells and building a family. Later, Yuri explains what he meant and tells her about Natsume. He adds that Natsume makes the mansion livelier, but he doesn't think she thinks highly of him. He mentions that he wants to be friends with Natsume, especially because she loves Lilith too. This realization shocks Tsukasa, especially because it sounds like the rival lover she's always read about. If this love story gets more exciting and taboo, this girl may just die of excitement. Meanwhile, Natsume shivers in the cold while waiting for some brat. The brat turns out to be Yuri, whom she plans to pick up from school. She spots him walking with Tsukasa and figures that he has a secret girlfriend after he said he loves Lilith. This makes her angry, and she decides she must take Lilith home. Suddenly, Fujisaki arrives while Tsukasa revels in the juiciness of the love triangle story. She almost runs out of breath because of how exciting things are, but Fujisaki comes to drag her away as usual. When Fujisaki walks past Natsume, they lock eyes and Natsume stumbles backward. This is because Fujisaki was infamous for being the worst student back in the academy, and Natsume gets worried that Fujisaki might think she's picking a fight with her. Later, Yuri approaches Natsume, who explains that she's here to take him home. While they walk home, Natsume gets the info that Tsukasa is just a classmate. When Yuri asks her why she came today, she explains that it's because she's planning to go home soon, so she wanted to say goodbye. Eventually, she asks him if he knows what Lilith wants for Christmas, but some men call out to her. It turns out that some high schoolers had bumped into Yuri and are blaming him for knocking down their food. Bluntly, Yuri tells them they bumped into him first, and the first boy almost smashes Yuri's head in. As he's about to, Natsume grabs his hand and tells him it's embarrassing to pick on a kid. The guy tells her to piss off and mind her business, but Natsume scares them off with her expression. After they leave, Natsume commends Yuri for talking back to those high schoolers. However, she reminds him not to put himself in too much danger and make Lilith worried, so he apologizes and thanks her. He tells her she was awesome, but she tries to brush it off. Eventually, he asks her for the chance to do something to thank her, and she eventually figures out something she would need his help on. When they get back, Lilith finds out that Natsume had gone out to pick up Yuri. Suddenly, Natsume and Yuri head inside together, which bothers Lilith. Later, Lilith worries that something seems off about them, and she overhears them arguing in the study. When she opens the door, she finds them arguing about dresses to pick for Lilith based on her preference. Eventually, Natsume gives up on the argument and tells Yuri that they'll be putting up a secret Christmas party without involving Lilith to surprise her. Yuri plans to tell Lilith that he's been invited to Tsukasa's Christmas party, and Natsume plans to take Lilith out and bring her back to the mansion when things are set. This way, Natsume also plans to find out what Lilith really wants while they're out. Later during dinner, Yuri tells Lilith that he's been invited to Tsukasa's Christmas party and adds that he'll have dinner at her place. This makes Lilith worried, so Natsume asks Lilith to go out with her for Christmas. That night, Lilith does some knitting so she can give Yuri a present. Suddenly, she hears a knock on the door. The next morning, Yuri tells Tsukasa about the secret party, and she excitedly agrees to join. He likes the idea and mentions that she's read plenty of books on the subject. She explains that one would first need to do something romantic, such as a helicopter ride to view the landscape, then rent out a ship for a dinner cruise, then finally finish in a bathroom with rose petals floating in the bathtub with candles to set the mood. After that, they'd both share words of love, and she almost bursts due to excitement. It's clear that she's been reading some 50 Shades of Grey, a rich billionaire falls in love with the maid kind of crap. Yuri doesn't get it, but she eventually asks him what his plans are. On Christmas Day, Yuri tells Lilith he's going to Tsukasa's house. Lilith seems worried but asks him to contact her if he needs anything. When Lilith and Natsume leave, Tsukasa and Fujisaki appear, with Tsukasa dressed as a detective. Tsukasa asks where the target is, so Yuri mentions that they've taken her out. When they enter, Fujisaki explains that Tsukasa has brought her up to speed and asks for permission to take over overseeing the party. They plead with her too, so Fujisaki gives Tsukasa the job of doing the decorations, which she hates. Meanwhile, Fujisaki and Yuri make the cake. While they're doing that, Fujisaki cleans Yuri's nose when he gets whipped cream on it, just like she does for Tsukasa. When Yuri realizes how much Fujisaki and Tsukasa love each other, he tells her that he envies them. This pleases Fujisaki, but Tsukasa soon ruins the mood by taking a picture of them because it's a rare pairing. Fujisaki soon confiscates her camera, so Tsukasa is left with helping them cook. While that's that's happening, Natsume gets nervous and wonders what they can talk about in such situations. She decides to Google it, but she only finds useless stuff. When Lilith notices her agitation, Natsume suggests they have some crepe snacks. Natsume runs to get the crepes, but she trips and gets a bloody nose, despite Lilith advising her not to run. Lilith becomes worried and gives her a napkin she soaked in water while Natsume sulks about how stupid she looks. Eventually, Natsume decides to apologize for her stupid behavior, but Lilith thanks her for everything. She figures that Natsume invited her out because she felt she was depressed, but she asks her if she's really okay with this since there may be someone she would prefer to spend Christmas with. Amused, Lilith jokes that she saw the Christmas special she read in the magazine and figured there might be someone she had feelings for, but Natsume can't bring herself to say that Lilith is the person. Eventually, Lilith suggests they enjoy the day, so they hang out together. Later that evening, the ladies head back and Lilith tells Natsume that the hair ribbon they got suits her. Natsume argues that cute things like this suit Lilith better, but Lilith assures her that she's very cute. This surprises Natsume and she gets embarrassed again. Suddenly, Natsume stops and hands Lilith a small gift box. When Lilith opens it, she opens her mouth in surprise when she sees it's a pen. Natsume explains that she was planning to figure out what she might like and buy it today, and tells her she's planning to go back to the mansion soon. She warns Lilith to use the pen to write her some letters while she's away, and Lilith promises to. Wait, don't they have phones? Why write letters? Stupid! When they get home that day, Natsume realizes the house is so dark. Suddenly, the Christmas lights turn on and Natsume is mesmerized. When Natsume looks to her side, she notices Lilith is gone, so she rushes in to check. Once she enters, everyone wishes her a Merry Christmas along with Lilith. For a moment, Natsume is confused, so Yuri explains apparently he had visited Lilith late in the night to confess what he and Natsume had been up to. Even though they were planning a surprise, he couldn't bring himself to keep a secret from her, and he plans to apologize to Natsume the next day. However, Lilith suggests this idea so they don't disappoint Natsume. Natsume realizes she's the one being surprised and she stumbles. She wonders why they do this, and when Fujisaki asks her if she's fine, she's shocked to see her and nervously greets her. This confuses Fujisaki, but they soon begin the party. After eating and a lot of enjoyment, Fujisaki carries Tsukasa home because she seems to have gotten high from all that sugar. Later that night, Lilith tucks Natsume in and commends Yuri for doing a fantastic job today. Yuri commends her work too in the gift she picked for Natsume. When Lilith asks about his own gift, Yuri recalls trying to knit something for Natsume with Lilith's help. He has made some mittens and has slipped in a knot he hopes she'd like. Before he goes to sleep, he places the gift by her side while Natsume snores. The next morning, Lilith ensures the entire mansion is sparkling. While she's looking at the whole thing, she decides to prepare tea before the others get back home from shopping. Suddenly, a car arrives in front of the mansion and a man steps down. While Lilith is preparing the snacks, she hears the doorbell ring and is surprised to see the man at the door. The man greets her, but Lilith is surprised to see her master. Meanwhile, Natsume and Yuri return home, while Natsume wears the mittens that Yuri made her. She carries a huge load of stuff that Lilith asked them to buy and wonders why she asked them to buy so much stuff. Yuri asks her why she's complaining when she was the one who chose shopping because she didn't want to clean. Eventually, Natsume reluctantly thanks him and confesses that she's glad she came here. She got to see Lilith is doing fine and was able to tell Lilith how she feels because of him. Yuri tells her he didn't do anything, but Natsume insists that he did. She explains that she always thought it was embarrassing to reveal one's true feelings, so it came as a shock to her. She decides to return to her mansion and tells the person she loves that she loves them. Confused, Yuri mentions that he thought she loved Lilith, and that surprises Natsume. However, she explains that the love she has for Lilith isn't the same one she has for her master. This intrigues Yuri when he learns she loves her master, and Natsume reluctantly agrees that there are different kinds of love. She explains that there's love for family and friends and tells him he won't understand since he's a kid. At the house, Lilith serves her master some tea, but he tells her she doesn't need to be so tense. He explains that he just came to see how she was doing since he was in the area, and then he apologizes that she had to take care of Natsume. Lilith tells him it's not a problem and tells him she's out shopping when he asks where Natsume is. Eventually, the master asks her if Natsume is assisting well and is pleased to hear she is. Moments after, Lilith apologizes to him for causing trouble for others at the mansion due to her selfishness. The master tells her that there's no need to worry about that and tells her everyone understands. Eventually, he admits that this mansion is nice and well maintained, and he comments that it's impressive that she does this all by herself. He points out that she truly cares about this mansion and her new master. Then he asks if it has to do with her past. This question surprises her, but she eventually tells him about how her parents disappeared when she was little. She was left without a home and was passed around between relatives and acquaintances. No one wanted to give her a home until Yuri's parents took her in because they were close friends with her parents. In a flashback, Yuri's mom serves Lilith some herbal tea, and the gesture surprises her. Her hair is so messy, she looks like a character character from The Grudge. Eventually, Yuri's mom offers to make her a snack, and the dad tells her she doesn't have to hold back. He assures her that she's welcome to stay as long as she likes, even though the agreement was to take care of her for just half a year. Surprised, Lilith asks him why, so he tells her that it's partly because they're grateful to her parents, but it's also because they don't want to abandon her. At night, Lilith is approached by the younger Yuri, who asks her who she is. She's unable to explain and covers her eyes, then falls to her knees. Confused, Yuri asks her why she's covering her eyes, so she tells him that her eyes are creepy. However, the kid removes her hands and tells her that her eyes are pretty and sparkle like stars. In the present, she reiterates that the people of this mansion welcomed her like her real family. In another flashback, Lilith decided to go to a boarding school for servants. What? There's a boarding school for servants? Even though her guardians were worried, they respected her wishes and let her study there. In the school, Lilith studied her hardest and vowed to repay them someday. After she graduated, she started working in her old master's mansion. During her service, she received news that Yuri's parents had passed away in an accident, and that made her remember how it felt to lose her own parents. That was when she decided to come running to protect him. In the present, Yuri and Natsume return home. When they enter, they notice the strange man in the house, and Natsume asks her master why he's here. Amused, he tells her it's because she wasn't coming home and that made him worried. She starts to blush and explains that he doesn't need to come get her because she was about to leave. Eventually, Yuri asks who this is, so he's told that he's the master of the mansion where Lilith previously worked. The man politely greets Yuri, so Yuri wonders why he's here. Immediately, he becomes alarmed and rushes in front of Lilith and declares that she's his maid. This surprises everyone, but the master soon starts laughing and tells Yuri it's alright. He assures him he's not going to take her back, and that relieves Yuri. Eventually, the master takes Natsume with him, but he thanks him for taking care of Natsume before leaving. Natsume insists she was the one who took care of Yuri, but the master cautions her to be nice and asks Yuri to keep taking care of Lilith. Finally, Lilith thanks her old master, and the man asks Lilith if it's alright for them to come visit since he and Natsume will miss her. Lilith agrees and Yuri grants permission. Once they leave, Lilith exclaims because she made dinner for 3. Yuri thought it was something serious and he assured her that he'd eat the rest because her cooking is delicious. Later that night, they both sit to have dinner. Lilith mentions that she didn't realize it would be so quiet around with Natsume not being around, and Yuri agrees. She finally points out that the two of them haven't been alone for a while, which is exciting, but Yuri just grunts in agreement again. When she becomes uncomfortable, she enters the kitchen to get him more food. While in the kitchen, she realizes that she's forgotten how to converse properly since they've not been alone for a while. She suddenly remembers when he confessed to her and realizes there's so much to tell him. After she brings back another portion, Lilith asks him if he'd like to go out. She mentions that they hadn't gone out together yet, and Yuri becomes shocked and asks if she's referring to a date. She is also initially shocked but reluctantly agrees, and Yuri agrees too. The next day, they head out on their date. While they're walking, Yuri stares at Lilith's clothes, so she explains that she dressed her best since it's their first date together. Eventually, she says she was just kidding, but at this point, we all know she's not. To her surprise, Yuri tells her she's beautiful, and that makes her blush again. Eventually, she asks where they should go, but Yuri tells her anywhere is fine as long as he's with her. It makes the poor girl blush and fumble for words, but she eventually suggests they go to a cafe for some hot cocoa. Meanwhile, Tsukasa sighs while taking a ride with Fujisaki. When Fujisaki asks what's wrong, Tsukasa asks why she has so many lessons during the holiday season. Fujisaki reminds her that she just has to get through today, and then she'll get to go on a vacation with her parents. Suddenly, Tsukasa is shocked by the sight of Yuri and Lilith walking across the street. She excitedly asks Fujisaki if she thinks they're on a date, but Fujisaki mentions that they're probably just shopping. Tsukasa doesn't agree and suggests they follow them, but Fujisaki refuses since the young lady has piano lessons. At the cafe, Yuri and Lilith enjoy hot cocoa. Eventually, Yuri tells Lilith there's somewhere he wants to go after this, so she agrees. Moments later, they reach the graveside of his parents and drop their flowers in respect. Yuri explains that he was afraid to come here alone, but he's now able to do so thanks to her. Eventually, he asks her if his parents are doing well in heaven, and Lilith replies that they are, and they're watching over him. When Yuri steps away, Lilith speaks with his parents and assures them that she'll take care of Yuri and they don't need to worry. Later that evening, they head out to see the Christmas trees. Suddenly, Yuri stares at Lilith, so she asks him if something is wrong. He directly tells her she looks so beautiful, gazing at the light so he couldn't help but look at her. He tells her it's been a long time. He's had her to himself since she's been busy, so he wants them to cherish the time they have together more. He suddenly grabs her hand and tells her he loves her again. Lilith becomes bright red again, but it suddenly starts to snow. Eventually, Lilith asks Yuri what kind of love he means when he says he loves her, and he remains silent. He confesses that he doesn't know, but he wants to find out going forward with her. That touches her, so she asks him if he remembers asking her if she's only by his side because he's her master. She tells him that she feels so happy when she's with him that her face turns beet red. She adds that her chest warms up, and she wants to be by his side because he's him, not because he's her master. She explains explains that she doesn't know yet if she can respond to his love, but she adores him all the same. She grabs his hand, and Yuri thanks her. Lilith remembers that this must have been the way things have been ever since she first met him. Now, she tells him she hopes that he continues to love her despite knowing everything about her. When the snow gets worse, they head back home while holding each other's hands. The next morning, Yuri wakes up and finds out the snow has piled up. He decides to make a snowman to surprise Lilith. When he looks around, he notices that she's already made one, and that makes him smile. Meanwhile, Yuri watches him from the window as he makes another snowman close to her own. She comes out and notices that the other one he made is one of her, so as to model the two of them. She finds it cute, so Yuri starts to make kids for them too, which shocks her. When he's done making them, she notices his hands are red and he started sneezing. Suddenly, he grabs her hand and puts it across his face. Lilith starts to blush again and suggests they head in.